So the NFL Top 100 has been coming out, and there was some controversy with Nick Bosa getting the number 17 spot on there. If you don't know how it works, the NFL Top 100 is voted on by players, and it's notoriously terrible. There are always, recency bias runs amok on that list, so it's not surprising that he got a very high grade. But, there's still controversy, and I thought it could make an interesting video of, has Bosa been getting overrated? Has Nick Bosa been getting overrated? Because he is a very talented player and obviously a very hyped prospect, but does he deserve all of the hype that he is getting? And I think it's interesting, so I figured let's just get into it. First, let's just talk about some statistics, and then we'll get into the film study. One of the first statistics you're going to look at if you're talking about an edge rusher is sacks. And sacks for Bosa doesn't necessarily go in his favor. He had 9 sacks, which is a good season for a rookie, no doubt about it. But also, it's nothing elite. In fact, he was tied for 22nd. It was a 5-way tie for 22nd for most sacks. So, nothing spectacular. In fact, something like that might have people just say, well, listen, clearly this guy is just getting a ton of credit because he plays in a big market and is on a great team. You can make the argument that Josh Allen and Max Crosby had better seasons. In fact, statistically, they did have more sacks. Both of them did as rookies. So if that's the only stat you want to use, there you go. You have your answer. But people don't like to use that one stat. In fact, a lot of people don't even use that stat too much at all. There's several other ways that people will, talk about how good a edge rusher is. Hurries is another interesting one. So that's what I'm going to talk about next here. So what I did was I couldn't find a database for just like hurries in general, so I had to sort of do it manually here. But what I did was I got every single edge rusher who had more sacks than him and a couple that had less sacks than him. And I just wanted to show off, this is the top 32 here. And what you see right here on the screen, these are top 32 sack artists of last year, according to how many sacks they had. And what you see next to them is the hurries. So while Bosa certainly didn't have a ton of sacks necessarily, he had a ton of hurries with 52. In fact, there was only 5 guys in the NFL who had more hurries than he did. Cameron Jordan, Danielle Hunter, Zadarius Smith, Aaron Donald, and Khalil Mack. Pretty good company to find yourself in, no doubt about it. And, one of those is Aaron Donald, who's not even an edge rusher. He's just a freak of nature. So, you have basically he was a top 5 edge rusher in terms of hurries. And so I think it makes for an interesting discussion. Do you sit here and say that, well, because he had a ton of hurries, chances are he's going to get more sacks in the future? Or is it, well, yes, he had a ton of hurries, but at the end of the day, a sack is much more important than making the quarterback have to rush a little bit. Statistically, the value of a sack is just so important that you really do need that, I think. And so I find it very interesting for sure. But what I actually think is interesting is that, really it's not necessarily what he did in the regular season. He was good in the regular season, for sure. He won Defensive Rookie of the Year, even though some people might have said that Josh Allen or Max Crosby deserved it. He won it. However, what he was able to do in the playoffs was way more impressive. He had 4 sacks and 16 hurries in just those 3 games, which would have been 21 in the third sacks and 85 in the third hurries if it was, averaged out for a full season, which is obviously just a very high number. He would be approaching record-breaking territories if he did that for a full season. It's a lot easier to do it for 3 games than for a full season. I get it. But very impressive. And I think the most notable thing about that, and the reason I'm bringing it up, is because it's showing that Nick Bosa, Personally, I'm going to say that I think he's overrated right now. I think how good he is right now is a bit overblown, but I think his potential is not overrated because, as you saw in the playoffs, he continued to get better and better, and he could continue to get better and better throughout the next couple of seasons. Yes, a lot of guys had more sacks than him this season, but out of all the guys that had more sacks than him this season, only 3 had more sacks than him during their rookie season. 2 of which were the guys I already talked about, Josh Allen and Max Crosby. So, that was this season. And the only other guy is his brother, Joey Bosa. So, good rookie season sort of run in the family. Also worth noting, Carlos Dunlap tied him. So you could argue, another guy in the mix. But for the most part, he definitely had an incredible rookie season. And I think it's worth separating potential from how good he is right now. I think his potential is through the roof. I think how good he is right now is he's a true number one edge rusher, but I don't know if I'm quite ready to call him an elite tier just yet. I think I need to see him elevate a little bit more. And let's just get into the film study and we can talk about why I feel that way. So one of the things that Bosa does really well is the grab technique. I think that he's probably a bit over-reliant on it. It's a sort of stab and grab technique. I think he's a bit over-reliant on it, if I'm being honest. But there's a reason why, and it's because he's very good at it. Like on this play, he's going up against a Carolina left tackle. And what's going to happen is that you notice that the way this contact happens. So watch really what he's trying to do is he's getting his right arm, and he has his right arm on that Carolina tackle's left arm right there. That's the key point of contact. So he has his left arm on the opposing tackle, Bosa does, and then his right arm is grabbing on to that arm, to his left arm. And basically what he's going to try to do is now control the left arm. Use the left arm to push out of the way. Because as long as he can get that left arm out of the way, now there's basically just one arm versus two, and he can much more easily push the tackle back and try to get to the quarterback. That's what he's trying to do here. This works out a lot, and it will very often allow him to create some pressure immediately. However, this time what's going to happen is that it's going to create a gap in between him and his other interior defensive lineman and allows Kyle Allen to run forward and pick up some yards. Not a ton. It wasn't a disaster, but I think that is one of my problems I do have with Bosa. I should also be clear, I'm nitpicking here. I am totally nitpicking. I'm not trying to pretend I'm not. Again, I'm trying to say that I think that he's not on a Khalil Mack level just yet. The fact that I even have to say that should be considered a compliment. But I do think that something like that, where he does this a lot. He gets a lot of pressures this way. He gets a lot of sacks this way. He also will give up containment, and he will allow a quarterback to be able to run sometimes with doing this. Another thing that happens is because he does this so frequently, it makes it really easy to run the ball against him. Like this play, for example, he's going up one-on-one against a tackle. This is going to be a running play, but he doesn't know it. And so watch how he initially starts the pass rush move, and that just takes himself out of the play immediately, which again, it's fine. It's not a big deal, but that's part of how he plays. Every way you play has some sort of positive and negative. I do think that the fact that he does a similar move on so many of his snaps, it makes it easier for teams to prepare for it, but it can do something else too. It can also help out the rest of your defensive line, and that might seem like that doesn't make any sense, but it can. Like this play, for example, he's going up one-on-one against a left tackle. He's going to pull off, or at least attempt to pull off, a very similar move. So you see how he runs over. You notice the right arm now. It's easier to see the right arm, but the Carolina Panthers' right arm, he grabs onto Bosa's sort of side right there. But for Bosa, what he's doing is he has his right arm. He's going to try to grab on to the Carolina Panthers' left arm, and again, that's going to be the main way he tries to win this. And he's also doing a good job. He tends to do a good job of, they say attack half the body, where you don't want to attack someone straight up. You attack them off to the side, so it's easier to push them that way. They're not as strong pushing that way. And, he can grab that left arm, try to move it out of the way, and get over to that side. This is what he does. But what's interesting this time, as opposed to last time, is while Kyle Allen, ran up in the pocket last time, this time he's gone very far back, and he's going to continue to step back. And because of this, Bosa is now much more easily able to make a tackle, and he gets the sack right there. So basically, for a quarterback, you can't step too far back like that, which you shouldn't do too much anyways, but it makes it that much more difficult as a quarterback because, obviously there's a guy named DeForest Buckner, who he's not there anymore, but he was, and he was great at getting pass rush up the middle. And of course, the entire line was great at that. And so when Bosa keeps doing this kind of thing over and over again, it basically almost gives you as a quarterback a zone of don't step back there because that could be trouble. And in doing that, he kind of is stuck in a little box where the rest of his, the 49ers defensive line can make plays. So even when Bosa is doing something predictable, sometimes that's not a bad thing. Sometimes that's actually a good thing. And I do think a lot of why we saw some players have better seasons this most previous year was because of how Bosa was on that line and because of how you had to basically say, I have to know where he is and I can't step too far back or I'm going to be in trouble. And it should be clear, it's not like Bosa can only do one move, but most of his moves are kind of variations that basically have the same effect. Like this play, he's going up against the right tackle. This is going to be, what's going to happen is that, again, he's going to kind of start this off somewhat similar, but notice how he wants to initiate this contact so quickly, to the point where he's, even leaping forward essentially to get the contact. He wants to make sure he gets his hands where he wants them, because that'll help him continue this move. That's what he's trying to do. This is essentially an under move, so what's going to happen is that Bosa is going to get his right arm. He's going to try to slip it underneath the right arm of the player he's going up against. That's what he's going to try and do right here. And watch how he is able to slip under, and he gets through like that. Now, better tackles wouldn't allow themselves to get beat this way. They would probably push Bosa further back, and then it would be a similar problem. But when Bosa is going up against weaker tackles, he can definitely pull this kind of thing off, and watch how he is able to just run over, and he eventually does get the sack. I think that's my thing with Bosa, is I think that he has a tremendous potential, and I think he's going to end up being, I could easily see him being a future 20 sack leader, or 20 sack getter. I totally could. I just think that his strength probably has to get a little bit better, so he can consistently do these things a little bit better. I think that if he can get to the elite strength level, he can be a Khalil Mack or even better. I really do. And the reason I feel that way is because, you notice how he sort of feasts against weaker tackles, but can be a little bit shut down against these strong tackles. This is because, for the most part, a lot of his moves do require, he uses his speed, but pretty much all of he doesn't really do a speed rush, though. So he needs to use his strength in pretty much every move. And in doing that, I think that, when he goes up against stronger tackles, he can run into a little bit of trouble. Again, I'm totally nitpicking. And the fact that this guy is a rookie and we're comparing him to some of the game's best is absurd. As much as I'm kind of saying he's probably a bit overrated, I also was someone who was saying that the Arizona Cardinals would be stupid to pass on him, because I thought he was going to be just, as good as he is right now. And, this is kind of what I expected. And I expect him to continue to get better and within the next couple of years become that elite talent. I'm just not willing to put him there yet. Again, obviously, I think we all agree he's not the second best edge rusher in the league. That's just the top 100 being the top 100. But what do you guys think? Is he a bit overrated, overhyped? I think that his potential isn't overrated, but how good he is right now probably is a bit. That's where I would stand. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.